talk about last week's UFC? Because that was terrible.
MMA Today for tomorrow. Let's begin, Big Toad. We already know what he wants. We already know what he thought about last week's event. It was terrible.
Spoiler alert.
Spoiler alert for real. But before we get into UFC Charlotte, let's get into the news of the super fight that's going to come up. Stipe Miocic versus Daniel Cormier at heavyweight for the heavyweight title. Also, they're going to be the coaches of the tough, I think, 27 undefeated season. I think that's good for. Let's get into the fight first before we get into the tough talk. What do you guys think about the fight? What do you think are the chances of DC beating Stipe? We'll start with you, Nolan.
So yeah, I think DC is awesome and all, but man, most super fights you kind of have. I feel like most super fights I'd find to be a little bit closer. I think that DC's obviously been there. He's been at heavyweight. He's competed against big guys, but I don't think he ever fought a heavyweight that was necessarily peaking. Josh Barnett was obviously very good when they fought, but you look at his trajectory afterwards, went downhill. Frank Mir, etc. So I think it's a great fight. I mean, how many times do we actually get to see legitimate super fights? That honestly, I don't really have a problem with this fight being made in the first place either. That's very rare. Most times with super fights, you talk about them, the first thing you think of is divisions getting clogged. Don't really see that necessarily happening here. Heavyweight, there's nobody that really sticks out. You can have Kane fight for Doom, make it a clear-cut number one contender instead of, an arguable one. And then the same thing with light heavyweight. There's really nobody there. So I love the fight. I don't love DC's chances. I think Stipe will get it done. He's just, he's the best right now, and he's, you can't really argue with the fact that he may be the best heavyweight in the world ever. So I'm going with Stipe. I don't think that DC poses that much of a threat, but it's DC. So you never know. He's an elite fighter, one of the greatest of all time in his own right, and this is MMA, so anything can really happen.
Tony Tone?
Yeah, I mean, I agree with Nolan in that I'm not worried about, the divisions getting clogged up. These are probably these divisions, light heavyweight and heavyweight, and then flyweight, or not flyweight, bantamweight and featherweight in the women's are like the other two that I wouldn't have a problem, with Amanda Nunes and Cyborg. Like the only one that I would have a problem with that's supposedly on the table for 2018 is the Mighty Mouse Dillashaw one. And that's not even, obviously 125, there's not really any top contenders out that, especially ones that Mighty Mouse hasn't already beaten, but it's 135 where there's plenty of top contenders. And you have, a guy who's just won the belt, hasn't even defended it yet. So that's the only one I don't really agree with. But yeah, I'm totally on board with DC and Stipe. I give DC probably a little bit more chance at an upset. I mean, he is the underdog, that's for sure. But I do think he has a chance of beating Miocic. I mean, he's obviously beaten a lot of big name heavyweights when they were in their prime. They might seem like guys who are kind of washed up now, like Mir and Roy Nelson and Josh Barnett and Bigfoot Silva and everything. But back when he fought them, they were in the prime of their careers. So those are all huge wins for him at heavyweight. I don't think the size will be an issue. He's never really had a problem with bigger guys, obviously. But the thing that I do think will be a problem for him is that Miocic is a wrestler just like he is. He's got incredible takedown defense. He's got, all those intangibles that wrestlers bring to the table. The grappling and all the grappling and whatnot. So I don't think DC is going to be able to impose his normal game plan, and I think he's severely outmatched on the feet. So that's kind of what I'm looking at. Is I see it probably being stand up with the wrestlers canceling each other out, and then you have Miocic, who I think is just a much better striker.
With that said, you guys make great points. But I feel that this fight's never going to happen. I feel that we're getting gassed. We're getting gassed by the UFC. A lot of people are talking a lot of shit, talking about the UFC cards are getting thin. So they're trying to throw in another, a super fight and get us excited for it. Have a TV show, The Tough Season 27, and, you know, have us all hyped up, and eventually someone, you know, is going to get injured, right? And it won't happen. I don't believe it. I don't believe the guys. I don't believe this talk of, you know, DC moving up and fighting. It's not good for the brand of the UFC to have DC go up. I understand that if DC wasn't the champion, it would probably be John Jones, because John Jones was always thinking about moving up. So DC's basically getting the fight that John Jones should have. But I don't know. I don't believe that this is going to happen at the end of the day. But you guys do make great points, and I want to be the Debbie Downer for this matchup and not go and with, you know, and be fooled by these people, these the machine of the, what is it, the WME machine,
Yeah.
the,
Well, I
the
think
Hollywood hypers.
another point I forgot to bring up was, if DC does pull off the upset, it puts the UFC in like a really bad spot, because now you got, I mean, obviously they're fighting for the heavyweight belt, so now you got a champ that needs another like Conor McGregor type situation, where you have a champ that has to fight at 205 and 265, or he has to vacate. And he's also got his teammate, you know, has an argument to be the top contender at 265, and Kane. So, you know, and I mean, I know Kane said he would drop down to light heavyweight, but there's no fucking way he's dropping it. He has consistently weighed in at like 240 to 242 in his career. He's not dropping down to 205. Like, there's no way that's happening. So I don't know. That I think it would just leave the UFC. Basically, the UFC is praying that Miocic comes through and beats DC, because I think if he doesn't, then they're just in a really bad spot.
So you're saying now the UFC wants Miocic to win?
I think they do.
That's crazy to think that. That's
Yeah,
crazy.
right?
You know, like, especially when Miocic, you know, gave the middle finger to Dana White, you know what I mean? Be like, fuck you, you ain't, you know, strapping that belt around my waist, you know, give it to my coach. So it's a unique situation. Stipe has so much to lose if he loses. He'll lose so much, I mean, if he loses.
Yeah.
Because it's like you got beat by a dude that is a light heavyweight champion. Come on. That's a risk, man. I don't know if you want to take that risk as being the baddest man on the planet. Do you? What do you think, King?
No, I agree with you. You know, I don't even remember what you just asked me, but
Was it not a question? Was it not a question?
Was it a question? I don't know.
I don't know.
But no,
what I was saying was that you know, should you take the risk?
Yeah, I mean, I think that I get the point that you're bringing up, but I don't know. I'm fine with it. I think that it's a risk I want to see, you know. So maybe they're caring about us, you know. Maybe they care about us more than people try to make them out to care about us, you know. And
that's very nice.
Hey,
that's our United Nations moment right there.
We're cool. We're going all positive. Okay, yeah, I forgot we were doing the positive thing. So
it's all right. I forgot the question, so that's worse.
I agree with Nolan that the UFC cares, and they care about Miocic, and they care about all the fighters on the roster. And they care about his fans as well, for sure.
Yeah.
They really do.
Now, they're going to be the coaches of Tough 27. You know, there was lots of rumors that the coaches would have been or were going to be Tyrone Woodley and Colby Covington. You know, like, I've heard from many people that they were going to be the coaches, even from the guys that are going to be in the Tough House. They were saying that they heard, you know, while they were in Vegas, Moles, you know, I got Moles, and they say that it was going to be them, but then they switched it up and they made it DC versus Stipe, which I believe is a much better coaching. Like, these guys would coach them better than
not just coaching. Not just coaching. I mean, that's a terrible fight. Woodley versus Covington, like, that just sounds like Ambien or something. I would not want to watch that fight. Like, to have a whole season of The Ultimate Fighter lead up to such a boring, awful fight. I don't know. I think they went with the right choice. You can't fault them for going with DC Stipe. I do fault them for going with the divisions that they did. I don't really understand them doing probably the two deepest divisions in the UFC and having those as the Ultimate Fighter cast. I'm not, obviously props to all the guys who are going to be on there, and I'm glad that they're getting the opportunity. There's some big time prospects on there, guys that I like immediately recognize when Sean released that some of the guys that he had heard about. I was like, oh, okay, they're getting some like good dudes on here. But I just don't understand. I mean, with so many divisions in the UFC being low quality right now, why not try to fill one of those? But I mean, I think that's already probably been said.
Bring back the heavyweight seasons, huh?
For real.
Heavyweights and flyweights. Let's do it.
Yeah, I think a light heavyweight needs a worse than heavyweight.
I believe that they were gonna go with Tyron Woodley versus Covington, and that's why they did the featherweights and the lightweights. But now they kind of switched their plans because of this, because DC won, Stipe won, and they put this fight together. But I believe that if they would have had those guys in mind, like from the beginning, we would probably have a heavyweight and light heavyweight season. Since these guys are the champions in that division, I think it would have been a much better show. And like you said, bring back the heavyweights. That was the best season, right?
That was a fun season, I thought, overall. One of the more memorable ones. I think I probably watched half the seasons. Some of the more recent ones I've kind of followed but not really watched. And, I think that was one of the ones that sticks out to me in my head. I think the original, obviously, was a great season, heavyweights. And then I thought Bisping versus Mayhem Miller was one of the other good seasons.
No love for season 4 with the Nate Diaz in it?
Oh, that was a good one with like Cole Miller and Lozon and all those guys. That was a fun one.
That's probably my favorite.
That's a good one.
Hey, you guys are forgetting the one with Cody Garbrandt and TJ Dillashaw.
I have to say which one of the ones was the best too was I thought that flyweight season they did a couple of years ago went completely underappreciated. Those were some really legit fights, and those fighters now, a lot of them are doing pretty well. Brandon Moreno and Pantoja and everybody. Do it again. Build that division more.
Right, exactly. Yeah, that makes sense.
All right, let's move on to talk about UFC Charlotte. See, so
Nolan said one more thing.
What did he say?
I just want to say that this season, I know people don't care about the Ultimate Fighter, and I get it. Prospects on this one are very legit too. A lot of times with the more plain themed seasons, there's no. I guess this one kind of has a theme, like undefeated fighters or whatever. But some of these guys are really legit. Some of these guys would be in the UFC in their next fight, or certainly would be on Contender Series. So definitely check them out. I think that they seem to have done a good job of casting it, and I think the fights will be high action too. So that's my plug. Tyler Diamond's great. Joe Genetti's a guy from my area who's killing it. Luis Pena, who else? Bryce Mitchell's a good one. Suman Mokhtarian, Poster Gate, that guy.
Yeah.
So a lot of good names, but
I'm interested to see the guy from Conor McGregor's camp, Smullen.
Yeah, he only has like 4 fights. That's the minimum, and he's 3-0-1. I don't know much about him.
It was supposed to be 5 fights.
I'm not sure. I thought the Tapology record had him at 3-0-1, but that doesn't mean.
No. I was saying I thought you had to have had 5 fights.
I don't remember if it was 5 or 4.
Did they just waive that because he was an SPG?
He's Connor's little brother.
They were just like.
They did the same thing for Artem. What is his name? Artem Lobov.
Yeah. There's 2 other. Go for it. Sorry.
I was just saying that he had a terrible record and he still made it on tough. So.
And they brought him back. He lost to get into the house, and they still let him go through. But yeah, there's 2 other unknowns on the season, and I don't have the names off the top of my head. But there's one dude who's from like Costa Rica, and he's like 15-0 or something, and he has like nothing on him that I can find anywhere. And then the second dude is a guy from the Midwest. I think he's from Ohio or somewhere. Maybe he's from down south. I don't remember, but he hasn't fought for like 3 years. So those are the 2 that I'm kind of like interested to see what happens with them.
Well, I do know that they do have to pass. You you guys are aware of like the whole procedure where they have to go through the roll session where they hit the mats, and then They do like mitt work and everything. So I mean, they had to have passed at least a few. Plus, they do interviews as well, so they had to have passed, multiple things where the talent evaluators were looking at them. So they're not like complete jobbers, unless, I don't know. Because I thought with last season on the flyweight, some of the girls who went really far were like the lower ranked girls that I thought had no shot. Eubanks being one of them. And then I guess I'll leave talent evaluation up to those guys because they apparently know more than I do.
Maybe they already have a few guys or girls or whatever like marked off. When they're doing the tryouts, like, oh, these people are definitely going to be on the show. They already know who they are. It doesn't really matter what they do in the tryouts. They kind of have their mind set, and maybe they just pick a couple other people that they don't know who they are from the tryouts. I would think that that's what they're doing. And also those interviews are very important too, like what you say in your interview. Especially I heard that if you go there with a teammate and you say if you're willing to fight your teammate, they like that. That's something that they really look at as one of the key points of selecting somebody, is somebody that will fight their teammate, because the drama around fighting your teammate is pretty big, So.
Oh, you mean preparing them for the actual season if they do have to fight their teammate from the house?
Yeah.
I see what you're saying.
That's interesting. One of the guys, I don't know if you saw him, bringing you back to your interview point, there's a guy, Delani Jones, who's on there. I have personally, he's fought for LFA. I don't recall off the top of my head his fights, but he showed up with like gold chains on, and he had girls with him, like ring girls and stuff. You can watch, I think MMA Junkie or somebody was on site for it, and they interviewed like a handful of the guys, and he was one of them. So it was something like right out of WWE. So, and he's sure enough, when the names came out, he was on there. So I'm guessing the personality's a big part of it.
Yeah, that's the UFC we're part of now.
Every house needs a rapper, right? So
yeah,
true.
But yeah, let's move on to UFC Charlotte.
Do we have to?
Well, we need to at least talk about the Jacare versus Brunson. And last week, I remember what I said about this fight, and I was completely wrong. And I was really shocked that Souza head kicked him and knocked him out, which was, and he was crying afterwards, which was kind of interesting to me. Why would he be crying after he just knocked out a guy that he's knocked out before? What is your take on this fight and the emotions that are coming out of Jacare? We'll start with you, Tone.
Well, I mean, for one, I was not surprised at all. I mean, I saw this coming from a million miles away with Brunson and his wild style and horrible fight IQ. And I mean, Jacare already had a beat on him the first time. He's really not fallen off that much. I mean, to be honest, the guy is still, even at his age, at the top of his game. So I mean, I didn't have any. I bet heavily on the fight as well. Was very confident in Souza, but I don't know. I think maybe the emotions of losing that very important fight that would have got him a title shot, and then the whole thing with the contract negotiations. I'm sure those weren't fun, and getting that win, and knowing his career is not over yet. I don't know.
What are you thinking?
Yeah, no, I think that's probably why he was, like you said, he was pretty emotional after the fight. From what we were hearing, he seemed to be on the verge of retirement in that period. He went through surgery. He wasn't sure if he was going to fight again, the contract thing. So it's he seems like he's just kind of revamped his career. He's kind of right back in that mix right now. We talked about Derek Brunson and him being kind of falling into a number one contender spot with a win over Jacare. So I think Jacare, he's not on the roll. Brunson is. He's coming off a loss to the champion Robert Whittaker, so it's not a rematch that I think they're going to do anytime soon. But same time, there's not a whole lot of options. So throw him in there with Chris Weidman, make another contender, where you can at least justify a title shot in what is is going to be, it seems like a weak title fight. There just seems like the stars are not going to align after the Rockhold Romero fight and then the winners fight. So you're going to kind of have to make a little bit of a reach for that next number one contender. So I think Jacare put himself in a perfect situation for like 2 fights away from a title shot type of thing.
Yeah, the Jacare versus Weidman would be a good fight for both guys. That would prove, something. If either one wins, that can, prove that they are the next guy in line to fight for the title, because I believe that interim title is going to go for a while, especially with the injury, or not even injury, the sickness that Whitaker has succumbed to. Now, Brunson, where does that leave Brunson? I feel that Brunson's still okay, even though he lost by a knockout. He's still, kind of improving himself, but not improving himself, right? Like he could still make improvements. He could still make adjustments, I believe. But if he doesn't, then he just basically becomes like a gatekeeper. And I think he could be a gatekeeper for a long time. He has the physical attributes. He has the ability to do that. What would it take, Tone, for him? And don't just say fight IQ. What else would it take for him to go to that next level? Because it seems like he's stuck at this level.
I mean, I don't know how to say it without saying that he needs to fight smarter. I mean, I don't know. I don't think I've ever really seen a case like this. Obviously there was guys like Chris Lieben, but I mean, Chris Lieben knew he wasn't going to get a title shot. I mean, those types of guys, are out there to put on a show. They know their role. They're just brawlers. And Brunson, is kind of in a different way, because he was, he's worked his way up basically to a couple title shots, or in the title picture a couple times now, and fallen short. And I think he's firmly in that gatekeeper role now. He's lost 3 of his last 5 fights. I mean, it would take a giant leap up to beat. He's already lost to Whitaker. He's lost to Jacare. That puts him, and Romero. So that puts him behind all of the contenders and the champion. I just don't. I don't think there's much ceiling left there, to use a baseball term.
I agree with Tone. I think it's to most of what Tone was saying, I agree with. I think that, you look at it, and when was the last time we saw Derek Brunson come out and just have like a calm fight? I mean, the Anderson fight, he was still didn't have the greatest IQ, but at least he was a little not balls to the wall, unless I'm kind of misremembering that fight.
Cautious.
What's that?
He was very cautious in that fight.
Yeah, exactly. So I know that didn't work out for him, but I just remember, when he first came in, I think he fought Chris Lieben, and that was kind of he'd go for a takedown, like lay on him, and that was the first time I had really seen him, and I was like, oh, this guy's going to be, kind of one of those Wallenstall type guys. But since that time, man, I mean, and the same thing about the Larkin fight, actually, when he fought Lorenz Larkin, very like wet blanket style. So I kind of was like, this guy's not going to be somebody that I'm going to be very excited to watch. But it seems like every single fight, win or lose since then, his balls to the wall style has got him, either in a lot of trouble or has caused him to win via first round knockout in the first 3 minutes. So for me, I mean, I don't think it would hurt him to switch things up. I think he's very good. I just think he needs to put it all together. Maybe, kind of play it by matchup. I think maybe the guys there's some guys out there you can blitz. He did it great with Dan Kelly, he did it great with Sam Alvey, he did it great with Lyoto Machida. And if you look at those fighters, those type of game plans work, But some of these other guys like Jacare, why not feel it out a little bit? This isn't, Dan Kelly you're trying to fight here. This is a guy that couldn't clearly knock you out, as we saw. And a guy that you have to be cautious with. He's a finisher. So hopefully from here on out, I wouldn't mind seeing a Wallenstall Derek Brunson just to see what he looks like from here on out.
Another interesting aspect of this card was the split decisions that went down.
It wasn't even the split decisions. There was like the unanimous decision to Drew Dober that people had problems with.
Yeah, those, like the judging, right? So let's delve into the judging a little bit, is because like in the Bermudez Fili fight, right? One of the judges gave Bermudez all 3 rounds against Fili, and then Fili got the decision, from the other two judges, right? The split. What are they like? I don't know what they're watching, man. Like, that fight was close, but I don't believe that Bermudez won all 3 rounds. Like, Fili was touching him up pretty good in a couple of the rounds, right? Where he won clearly, it seemed like, right?
Did you have that mixed up? Did you mean
Or in
Bermudez?
the takedowns too, if you're gonna count takedowns.
I thought Bermudez outstruck him on the feet, or he did outstrike him on the feet very clearly. And the numbers back then, it was like 130 strikes to 80 or something like that. It was a huge margin. Bermudez was tagging him up on the feet, and yeah, Fili did get some takedowns, but I don't think he won that fight. And then the Drew Dober Frank Camacho fight, I did agree with that one, but I could totally, that was another very close one. And then people have problems with, I think most of the women's fights, are all 3 of them. I don't even remember, but at least 2 of the 3, the what was it, the Marcos Lima and the it was all 3 of them. Yeah, all 3 of them were somewhat controversial as to who won the fight, and there just didn't seem to be any consistency throughout the night. Because if you're going to prioritize takedowns in one fight, I mean, you have to prioritize them in the other fights, and they didn't seem to be doing that.
Yeah, that is the problem right there, is because what I saw was that Fili, I felt that, yeah, he didn't hit him as much, but I thought that he did a little bit more damage, right? Compared to, Bermudez, right? And the takedowns, do you think those takedowns, they should count as much? King, do you think they should count as much in a fight?
I mean, it's one of those things, I think, theoretically, and you can correct me if I'm wrong. I'm not like a too much of an expert in the whole rules field, but I think with the new rules, they're not supposed to count as much. I don't know what North Carolina was doing as far as the new judging. I'm sorry, not the new rules, the new judging rules. I'm not sure. Were they on the new rules or the old rules? Anybody know?
They were on both, like the last event.
Yeah,
that they were on the modified shit.
Yeah. So, anyways, I think they should count to a certain extent. I think it kind of depends on what you do with them, though, in my opinion. And if if you get a takedown, obviously, and a guy that you took down doesn't do anything, yeah, that obviously that should count. But I think that what they're trying to do now is try to gear it to be more of a fight, like judging a fight, not judging a control match or whatever. So I'd like to see them move away a little bit from it, but at the same time, this stuff is so subjective. Nobody really knows what counts as what still, because it's so subjective. What's like what we're talking about right now, that's my opinion, but not everybody sees it that way. And it's a tough subject right now, especially with the rules switching between every week and the commission's not even knowing what rules they're using. So I don't know, man. I guess we'll see what happens, but I'd like to see them move a little bit towards more of a fight, scoring a fight than scoring a match.
Well, I think that's a good point, though. You brought up what do they do with the takedowns? Because on a lot of those Fili takedowns, Fili would take him down, and immediately, right away, Bermudez would pop back up. And it's like, are we really going to give him points? When you're getting tagged up on let's say in a round, you're getting beat up on the feet, but you took the guy down and then he popped right back up 2 times. Does that win you a round? I don't know. That's all, like you said, it's all subjective. At this point, I mean, I think there needs to be more clear wording in the rules as far as judging goes. The question I have for you guys, I guess, would be, can bad judging ruin like a fight night or a fight card for you?
For sure. Yeah, absolutely. I think that if you look at this fight, there was a lot of wackiness with the judges, but I don't think necessarily that I had, there was, for example, the one that just comes to top of my head a couple of years ago when McGregor fought Seaver on that card. The judges were like horrendous in Boston. So I didn't think that was this was to that level. I think the decisions themselves, not necessarily the round by round.
The card where they lost all the samples.
Yeah, that same card, which is just it was a mess. It made me think they were never going to come back here. Get me. Jeez.
Lost.
Anyways,
They lost
yeah, they lost them all. But so yeah, I think that overall, like this card wasn't ruined for me in that way. I don't even think most of the decisions were necessarily like awful. I think some of them I disagreed with. But at the same time, if you look at MMA Decisions is a great website, and you look at the scoring on that, I don't remember a card that I've seen more decisions that were like pretty down the middle. Even if you have 2/3 of the people that vote and 2/3 of the media think one thing, and then 1/3 of the media thinks the other thing, or 1/3 of the people, that's like that's a pretty close fight.
I don't know, because the Feely Bermudez fight, I think there was only 3 media members.
And that's the one I have to say. There was the Feely Bermudez fight I did not agree with. I would say that's a bad decision. And then there was the other one. It was one of the women's fights. I thought was a bad decision.
The Barella. There was Barella.
That was that one.
And then there was also people also had a problem with. They had a problem with all 3 of them, did they not?
Yeah, no, yeah. I mean, people. I think for sure. I mean, I saw people arguing about the Vince Pichel fight. I saw people arguing about the Camacho fight. So for those, I don't know. There was only 2 that I'd characterize as like bad. The other ones I didn't agree with, but I wouldn't say like throw the R word around and start saying robbery. But
can you think of a card that had so many decisions that you were just like, what?
No, not at all.
Yeah,
I shot like 1 for 5 on those like close fight decisions. So I don't remember ever happening before.
I actually was talking to Damian Brown about his fight with Camacho, and it was a very close fight, right? And he felt like that there's not enough draws in MMA. Like a draw is better than a loss. And especially in a fight like that where it's so close, sometimes the judging, like you said, is subjective. Like if you're moving forward and throwing your arms and kind of tagging him a little bit, it seems like you're winning the fight. And if you like lean against the cage after you got hit, it might look like you got rocked, but really you're not. You're just leaning against the cage. Like he kind of delved into all that stuff. And I thought of that and I said, man, you're right. Sometimes what you see is not what you really get out of the fight. You know what I mean? So yeah, it's just it's weird, like this card and how the judging just ruined it. Like you said, just plain out ruined it.
That's so true about draws, though, because I remember the Vittori Akhmedov fight, and I was like cheering. I think people thought I was really weird because I was like really happy it was a draw. I was like,
me too.
It's a draw. But it's like it's the right call. If it's the right decision, it's the right decision. Like I know some people will make jokes like, "Oh, this isn't soccer. Like you can't have, you have to have a winner or whatever." But I mean, some fights, there's just not a clear winner. Like, it happens in boxing quite a bit, and I don't think it should be any different in MMA. If there's not, a winner, don't just give the guy a W just to give him, just so you don't have a draw. Like don't be afraid to do that. Basically, I think he's dead. I think Brown's dead on there.
Yeah. I was also going to say, go ahead.
It'll be interesting to see how to do that. I'm not a mathematician, but I think part of the reason they put the 10-8s in was kind of thinking something like that might occur more. But I think throw some 10-10s in there. I think throwing a 10-10. If you have a round where you can't put your finger on it, like I don't have a problem with them making 10-10s like a more of a thing or a thing really in general. I don't remember really seeing many 10-10s.
Yeah, they never scored 10. No,
I don't think it's a thing.
The one time that I did think that they scored a 10-10 round in a fight, it turned out to just be an error.
Yeah, I think that's what I remember. That's
Yeah.
exactly what was coming to my mind.
Yeah, there hasn't been any 10-10 rounds in MMA for I don't
And also matchmaking would be a lot easier because those draws, you can just book them again immediately, right? To fight again because they fought to a draw. So just fucking let them fight again. Why not? You know what I mean? Like, let them do it because even when there's controversial wins, sometimes they book that fight again. Especially last week's. Remember last week's card? What was those guys? The 2 guys?
Sabah Homasi and Abdul Razak Al Hassan.
Exactly. Damn, You know names like a motherfucker. Like that's hard names to remember. But yeah, those guys, they fought again. The result was the same.
Right.
But even more like clear. Yeah.
I'm okay with that. I like that. And they got him to fight quick too.
We need to like hashtag more draws. You know what I mean? Like in MMA, we need to fucking push that a little bit. All right, now, what do you guys think was the golden nugget from this UFC Charlotte card? Who do you think performed the best? Who do you think is the next star that you can see creeping up? We'll start with you, Tone.
It's Mirsad Bektik. That's the very obvious answer. I thought. I mean, at least in a card that I thought was pretty terrible. I thought Bektik was the saving grace, I guess. Not only delivering like a highlight reel type knockout, with the punch to the the chest or the solar plexus or whatever, but also just showing off all his physical attributes and how fast he is. And I mean, the guy's just a monster. And like at this point, and he lost to like Darren Elkins, I'm just gonna chalk up to some like witchcraft. The guy is just not human. So I mean, anybody like Michael Johnson, even like he lost to Darren Elkins, and it's just like, okay, like Darren Elkins is on some path of destiny to fight for the featherweight title or something. That guy is something else.
Yeah, and I agree with you, Tone. I think that's the first name that jumps out at me. But Gregor Gillespie's up there too. I know his matchup wasn't that great. I think it was a mismatch from the start. I don't know what Jordan Rinaldi did to the UFC to get absolutely the worst matchup ever in his home state that they never go to ever. I don't understand it. He's such a nice guy too. I don't get it. Anyways, but I think that Gillespie stuck out. And then if you go deeper on the card, I think Corey Sandhagen had a good performance. His second fight in 8 days, and having back-to-back weight cuts in that is just inhuman. And he did really well. And Austin Arnett's a tough dude. People can say Austin Arnett I heard a lot about coming into Contender Series, but there was a big knock on him that he had never fought tough competition. He was fighting, and if you look at the records of the guys that he was fighting, fair enough. There were some matchups in there where he was 15-0 and he was fighting a guy that's like 0-2 or something. So I get it. But that fight against Brandon Davis on Contender Series, Austin Arnett was hit with some serious shots. He took a beating. And for Corey, he had 10 days or whatever. Impressive stuff from him. I think he's one to watch with a full camp. Main training partner TJ Dillashaw keep getting better every day. I think he's gonna be one to watch in 2018.
I'm gonna go with Jeon Kim as the next superstar coming out of this.
You gotta rep, man. You gotta rep.
I gotta support my people, man. But that was one of the controversial decisions that came out of that fight card. But what can you do? But in all honesty, man, like King said, Gregor Gillespie, man, that dude, he's going to be by the end of the year, he should be in the top 10, I believe. He will be. I think he just went in there and just destroyed dude, man. The dude just got destroyed in his hometown. It was embarrassing, and he had no way out. Gregor Gillespie's just good everywhere, it seems like. And I'm looking forward to seeing him fight a big name next. Plus, he's undefeated. He looks like a gangster, but really he seems like one of the nice guys, that fight in the UFC. So I see big things happening with him, Gregor Gillespie. Other than that, Bektik did well, but really those are the only two guys that have great potential.
And the scary thing about Gillespie too, I forgot about this. He's only been fighting pro MMA. He's been fighting for I think only about a little under 4 years. So not too shabby for a guy that to be putting everything together with a strong wrestling background. He's like you said, scary mofo.
Which regional did he come out of Ring of Combat?
He came out of Ring of Combat. Yep.
Yeah.
He fought for them from 2014 to 2016.
All right, now this weekend, UFC Fight Night. Which one is it? 150,000? No, I'm just kidding. 125. Machida versus Anders. Anders, he wins I think it was his debut. Calls out Machida. gets the Machida fight right away. That's why when they say if you got the mic, call somebody out because you never know who you could get in your next fight. And it's a main event in Brazil. Let's talk about before we talk about the main event, let's go through and see, like we did last week, what fight on the prelims are you looking forward to most? We'll start with you, King.
Oh, red as I'm dying. But anyways, on the prelims, that's a tough one. I think the one that that has the most potential to be a high-action, fun fight is Yuri Alcantara versus Joe Soto. That's a great fight. Both those guys, you can say whatever you want. Did I steal yours, Tone?
Yeah, you did.
Yeah, sorry. But both those guys, man, that win or lose, they can compete with the best and they can put on fun fights against the best. So throw them together. I'm hoping that the MMA gods bless us with continuous performances from both of them. And I don't see that fight going the distance, but I think we'll get a good scrap at the same time.
Well, you, Tone, since he stole yours.
No, that was a great pick. I totally agree with him. That's
you can't agree with him. You got to pick another one, man.
I am gonna pick
a variety of this shit.
I'm picking another one right now. I think looking at the prelims, I'd probably go with Tim Means and Sergio Moraes.
You stole my shit. Go ahead.
I like that fight. I think it's gonna. I don't think there's any chance that it's gonna be a boring fight. You could say that about a couple of the prelim fights, but I think especially that one.
It's a good card.
Yeah, it's honestly, I love this card compared to the bullshit that we had to watch last week. Like, I am super stoked for this.
Yeah, the prelims on this, if you're gonna watch like free fights on TV, these are some fucking good fights, right? Marlon Vera, Douglas Andrade, Alan Patrick, Damir, Hazovic? This Damir Hazovic's a fucking good fighter too, right?
That's the guy who knocked out fucking held with the knee.
Yeah.
The really wonky knee.
That was a weird knockout. I love that one.
And it was a comeback knockout, so that's what's incredible. Yeah, that Tim Means, man. Like, I agree. Tim Means versus Moraes.
You can't agree with me. No, you can't do it.
Okay. I'm sorry.
Breaking your own rules.
Okay, then I'm gonna pick. I'm gonna fuck this up. Pauliana Viana, the Brazilian.
Oh God, you got two of the worst names here.
and this girl, I'm thinking she's from Hawaii. Stevenson, right?
Yeah, so Joe Stevenson's wife.
Yeah, I'm picking that because I don't know who these girls are, and I've never seen them fight, so I'm looking forward to it. And they're kicking off the prelims.
Stevenson was on the Ultimate Fighter.
Where were you guys reading that name from? Oh, okay. Because Wikipedia I was on just had her listed as Maya, and I was like, what are they saying?
Well, Brazilians, nobody knows what to call them until they get to the UFC because they use like their last names and like there's a lot of Brazilians out here in San Diego, so like I'm starting to learn all this shit because like friends out here are Brazilian, and it's like so confusing because they go by their last names, their middle names, their first. Like, I have no idea.
Yeah, like we found out that Gleason Tebow's name wasn't actually Gleason Tebow last couple weeks ago. It's not Gleason. Like, it does not Tebow either.
Henan Baral's not Henan Baral's real name.
I did not know that. So that's interesting.
Baral means baron in Brazil.
Oh, I did know that maybe.
Or Portuguese, sorry. Portuguese.
Yeah.
In Brazil.
Yeah. Hashtag. Oh, hey. First fight. This is a hype fight for real. Like, I love this fight. First fight on the main card. Thiago Santos versus Anthony Smith. For real, fight of the night. It's got to be, right? What do you guys think of this matchup? Bangers. They're going to stand and bang no matter what. I remember Smith recently, before this fight, he was talking about, like, fighters that he was supposed to face. They didn't sign the contract. They're scared. They're ducking Smith. And I could see why they would duck Smith. He's pretty powerful, right? But what do you guys think of this matchup? And who do you think is going to win this matchup? Because I feel that this is a very close fight, for the middleweight division. And a good fight for one of these fighters to propel themselves into maybe to the top 10, right? So what do you think, King?
Yeah, I'm glad that the three people or whatever turned that fight down, because this is a hard matchup to beat for both guys. I think that the V word's coming out strong here. Violence. Both guys just heavy power strikers, fun guys to watch. It's kind of an interesting little tidbit. I know that Anthony Smith, maybe about a month and a half ago, put out a tweet, something about I don't remember what it said, but it was something about how he's surprised at how many guys are scared and don't want to actually be in the UFC or something. And the day before that, I had actually heard some things about Thiago Santos thinking about getting like pulling out of the fight, that there was something about training or something about logistics. So I was never able to confirm that. I don't want to start throwing around rumors or anything, but it's kind of the timing between his tweet and somebody that I really trust telling me those two things made me think that that's where Smith's frustration was coming from, that they had told him something like that. But anyways, great fight. I'm interested to see who wins. This is kind of a pick 'em in my book, but if I had to pick one way or another, I'm going to go Thiago Santos. I think he mostly struggles against guys that are willing to mix it up a little more than Anthony Smith is. And I think that Thiago Santos is still, to me, even though we've seen him get knocked out a couple times, I think he's one of the scariest dudes in MMA. Like, that power, man, it's hard to beat. Anthony Smith's tough, but I'm going to go with Thiago Santos inside the distance.
Tone?
Yeah, I mean, if this is gonna be, a rock'em sock'em fight, I'm taking Santos all day. I think he packs, even both these guys pack a mean punch, but I think Santos is just that much more of a beast. The guy is just built like a fucking truck, and USADA has not seemed to slow him down whatsoever. He's still knocking dudes out, first, second round. He's getting guys out quick, scoring, performance bonuses and whatnot. But I'm a huge fan of him, so I think he gets the job done here, and hopefully gets a big fight. He kind of got derailed versus Spicely a while back. Came into that fight a humongous favorite and lost, and that just, I feel like that really derailed the hype around him. And if that hadn't happened, we might be talking about, him when we talk about middleweight contenders.
Yeah, Santos, he's drinking that jungle juice, and Smith is drinking that good old-fashioned American tap water. And if you're going to compare those two, I'll take the jungle juice all day. And, you know what it is. Santos is a beast. Smith is going to come in and brawl. You know that's going to happen. Smith's not going to come here and become like this tactical guy. He's going to come here and brawl, and you got to give the power edge to Santos. And Santos is a little bit more, I guess, I don't want to say a better striker, but he puts it together better than Smith does. Smith might be a little bit more diverse, right, in his striking, but I feel Santos puts it together better and lands on the sweet spot more often than Smith does. And yes, Smith's chin is going to be tested, and when it gets tested, he's probably going to fall. This is probably going to be like a first-round knockout, but Santos probably is going to win this fight. But who knows, man? I'm always wrong. But I'm agreeing with you guys, so that means maybe I'll be right this time. All right, now the next fight is I don't know who's this next. You guys want to talk about these guys? Timothy Johnson, who looks like one of those like old school 1920s boxers, right?
I was gonna say, well, yeah, I guess Timothy. You could say meaner things about Timothy Johnson.
Yes, and he looks like a fake ass Dan Severn, a little bit with the ball head.
This is kind of one of those, heavyweight fights they'd like to throw on the main cards, hoping that it ends in a knockout. Golm, like the dude, I remember when he made his UFC debut, nobody knew anything about him because he was fighting like backyard type shit in Brazil. Like, we're not even like jungle fights or like some of the more well-known promotions, and he only had a few fights. There's like literally no tape on him whatsoever. But he had a good amount of hype coming into that fight versus Christian Colombo somehow, and proved it right, with that quick submission. But I honestly, I don't know where he came from. I don't know anything about him. I do know Timothy Johnson, and I know he's not very good. And yeah, I'll leave it at that. If Nolan has something else.
Yeah, I say this. I feel like it's Groundhog Day, but two things. One, I love heavyweight fights, and two, they're the hardest thing to predict ever. We say that it only takes one. I say that all the time, but heavyweights, obviously, that's more of the case. I think it's a good fight. I think it's a good matchup. Clearly, they're trying to build Golem, get another young name, another guy.
You know where he came from?
I don't. I obviously, like you said, I remember when he first was going to debut. I did watch some tape. Let's see. Bunch of things I never heard of. Actually, Aspera FC, isn't that kind of something that's?
He never fought in Aspera.
His first fight says Aspera FC.
Oh.
And then Thunder Fight, iCombat. I don't know. I don't know anything. I remember when I looked up, tried to find video. I found like one 30-second video that looked like it was filmed with like my grandparents' old phones. It wasn't even I don't know, just so awful quality that I couldn't really even make out what was going on. So, guy, not many people know about, and from a 2-minute and 8-second performance in his last bout, I think all we know is that he has potential to finish, UFC prelim caliber heavyweight. So I'd like to see him come out. I think Tim Johnson's way better than Christian Colombo, and I think that he's a guy that's more durable. I don't think with Tim's good solid wrestling background, I don't think Golem's just going to take him down and sub him like he did with Colombo. I like Christian Colombo a lot. I've talked to him a number of times. He's a really nice guy. But I think Johnson's on a whole nother level than him. So I'm actually gonna pick Tim Johnson in this one. I think it will be one of those things where I don't know. Again, we can't really assess it because I don't know anything about Golem except what we saw last time. So I'm just gonna go with Johnson, who's been proven and he's been durable and he's more of a I know more about him, so I'm just gonna pick him.
Yeah, Golem is a guy that seems like whenever they go to Brazil, he will be on the card. He's a guy that most likely is just going to stay in Brazil and fight guys that are coming in. I think we talked about him the last time we had, not the last time, but, a long time ago, about Golem and where he comes from. And we all said the same thing, like, we don't know anything about him. So I guess you'll find out something about him in this fight because Timothy Johnson will go in there and wrestle with him and throw him around and maybe, put him in some dangerous spots and see how he reacts to it. I think this will be a good test for Golem and also vice versa, a good test for Johnson, fighting a young guy, way younger than him, and with seems like good knockout power and knows how to finish with submissions. So it will be good. I'll always go with the more seasoned guy, right? That's how I usually do it. So I'm going to go with Timothy Johnson. What about you, Tone?
I can't make a pick. I know nothing about Golem. Like I usually, and that never happens with me with main card fighters, so it's kind of tripping me out because like on the prelims, sometimes there'll just be fighters where there's just not a lot of tape on them, so it's whatever. But like on a main card, like I just don't. I don't know anything about them. I really don't.
Yeah, the next fight is Michael Cazares versus Des Green. Now, I guess we could talk about it a little bit. What do you guys know? We'll start with you, King.
I love this fight. I think Des Green and Michael Cazares are two of the more underrated fighters in this division. I'm really interested to see Cazares get tested. I feel like we get to see him compete quite a bit, but it always ends up being against the same level guy or against a late notice replacement. So I'm very happy with this fight. Tough guy, Michael Cazares, very under the radar, like I said, and at 36 years old, he's going to start getting matchups like this. And what better fighter to give him than Des Green, another really underappreciated guy. His only loss in the UFC thus far has been to Rustam Khabilov. I know he's only had 2 fights, but 2 fights ago, he beat Josh Emmett. So he's a guy that's been around. He's fought for everyone. He fought for Titan, Bellator, you name it. I'm a big fan as far as the style matchup goes as well. If you're asking me for my pick, this is a tough one, but I'm going to maybe lean towards Michael Cazares. I think he's looked really good as of late, and I'm assuming he's going to want to take this to the ground, which is something that Green struggled with a little bit in his last fight. So I'm gonna go with Michael Prazeres. I'm gonna say by decision.
I'm much more confident than King. I think Prazeres is going to steamroll him. I do like Green. You know, I always have respect for the guys who put in their time like Green did. Like King mentioned, you know, he's been through a lot of the promotions, mainly a lot of fights with Titan. But like you said, also like Bellator and some other just random regional type shit. And I always respect guys like that. But man, Prazeres is just fucking scary. The dude is a monster on the feet, he's a monster on the ground. He's physically, you know, gifted. The guy is just looks like a fighter. I couldn't find, because I've watched tape on Des Green before, and just watching tape of Prazeres, you know, after that, I just don't see where Green will have an advantage. And I put a sizable bet on him right when the odds dropped for this one. I think it was minus 150.
Yeah, Prazeres, man, he's got some big wins. He's beaten Maribek Taisumov, you know, he's beaten Gilbert Burns. Both guys pretty high level like grapplers. He's choked out Josh Barnett, or not Barnett, Josh Berkman. You know, like and he's been around the UFC for a few years. What's up?
I said if he keeps missing weight, he might be fighting Josh Barnett. That guy's huge, man. And I know, like, I don't remember. I was trying to just look for the tweet, but somebody tweeted out, I think his last fight he missed weight by a couple pounds. And
yeah, he weighed in at 159.
Yeah, and somebody that day had tweeted out something like a little tidbit that of what his weight was that day of the actual fight. It was something ridiculous. It was like in the 180s or like the high 180s, and I can't find it right now, but I believe that was the second time that I saw that with him too. So he's a guy that gained some serious weight once he gets in that cage.
I don't think he's missed weight he might have missed weight once or twice.
Yeah. No, I wasn't saying he missed weight more than once. I was just saying, you know, his last fight when he did miss weight, I saw that tweet, and then previously I had seen it with another time where he was on weight, that he was weighing like 30 pounds more than he was the night before or the day before.
It's just crazy. It's weird because he debuted at 170, and then from then went down to 155, which, I mean, I'm surprised he's been when he did that. You know, I'm surprised, and I'm surprised he's been able to keep doing that in the new era of no IVs and all that.
Yeah, Prazeres seems like he's put in a position where he could win this fight, you know, and kind of like get into a little streak. Des Green, like you guys said earlier, he's a wrestler. So if he can't wrestle the Russian guy that he fought last time, it's going to probably be pretty hard to, you know, mess with Prazeres on the ground. So I'll agree with you guys and go with Prazeres. He'll probably end up submitting Green sometime in the later rounds, I believe. Now, next fight is Valentina Shevchenko versus Priscilla Chacharona. Now, I don't know how you say that one, but I said it like I was Portuguese right there, right? Anyway.
Cochera? Is that it?
I think it's Cachorrera.
I think
Cachorera?
Because isn't capoeira like spelled similarly?
Cachorera.
The question is, do you believe
her name.
Do you believe Cachorera has a chance? Not a chance.
Fuck no.
Can she beat Shevchenko? And she's undefeated.
No. I posted a clip. I mean, I was kind of misleading because I took out the parts where she actually like knocked out the girls that she was fighting. But like I posted like a very short clip of her just like swinging for the fences on Twitter.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, is this really who Shevchenko's fighting? Because like, I mean, to be fair to her, if you do watch the full fights, I mean, she's not fighting like that the entire fight. But my God, like she's just winging punches, like insane, like Chris Lieben, like we're here to brawl and I'm here to get knocked out or you're gonna get knocked out type thing. And that's the kind of matchup where Shevchenko is just gonna ruin you, you know? And I think she opened as like a minus 700 favorite, and now she's minus 900. That never happens. Like, nobody ever takes huge risks on minus 700 favorites. And there's money coming in on her as a minus 700 favorite to bring her all the way to minus 900. That's pretty fucking crazy. I don't know if you guys know betting at all, but that like never happens.
No, I don't
I'm,
follow
I'm,
any
I'm
bet.
somewhat familiar, but just to build off of what you said, I think you nailed it. And the discussion that can be had on top of that is it's not like she's coming in and fighting somebody that's another UFC debutante or somebody that was a good regional fighter. She's coming in and fighting one of the best, pound for pound women's fighters in the world. This is would be a nearly impossible debut for anyone. I don't know anybody that they could bring in from outside the UFC that would go, minus 400 or lower with Valentina Shevchenko. So for me, that's just in general. I don't like the matchup to begin with. I don't know, man. I just don't like matchups like this. And nobody should ever be really minus 900 on paper unless they're, a last second fill in, or you have a absolutely dominant champion like Mighty Mouse, or when Ronda Rousey was thought to be dominant. But that's just, I don't know, man. I think it's going to be first round finish for Valentina.
That's crazy that this wasn't a late replacement, because this has like late replacement written all over it, right? Like, if you just glanced at this, you would be like, oh, okay, like somebody got injured. Like, Shevchenko was supposed to fight, a ranked flyweight, and they just couldn't find anybody, or like she got injured and they couldn't find anybody, so she's fighting this girl. But no, this is who the UFC originally booked for her. Like, I don't get that.
Yeah, this matchup is a weird matchup. Why did they put, one of the best fighters in the world against against Chacharone, right? But why didn't they just give her a title shot either, man? Like, what is this whole situation? Why are they doing this? What, are they just giving her a tune-up fight?
Well, it's for sure a tune-up fight, but I mean, I totally agree with the fact that she should have to get a win at 125 before she gets a shot at the title. Even though I thought that she beat Nunes in her title shot, I don't like the idea of someone just moving down into a new division and just immediately getting a title shot based on reputation. Like, I never thought that was like the right move to make.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, and not even like, well, I was gonna say Bellator never does that, but they did it with Larkin. I think she should have to fight somebody, but I don't think that somebody should be a fighter making their UFC debut. That doesn't add up at all.
Yeah, it's it's a weird situation for Shevchenko, and I don't know, but you got to get paid, man. If you don't fight, you don't get paid. So you got to get out there.
Yeah,
And
it could totally just be a case of Shevchenko like saying to the UFC, like, I need a fucking fight, like, give me a fight, and they're like, well, we don't have anybody on. And she's like, I don't care who I fight, and so they're like, oh, all right, well, you don't care who you fight. Here's this fucking job. I don't want to be disrespectful, but here's this random fighter from Brazil. Like, I don't know. I don't know, but nice thing that.
all right, let's move on to the next one. The next one is the co-main event: John Dodson versus Pedro Munoz. This is a huge opportunity, not for John Dodson, for Pedro Munoz. He's one of the up-and-coming guys in the bantamweight division. How do you see this matchup going down? Do you see Munoz, I guess, embracing the moment and taking out Dodson like he has done every other guy that he has faced in the bantamweight division? We'll start with you, King.
No, I'm going to go with John Dodson in this one. I'll just give my prediction right off the bat. However, I think Pedro Munoz is one of those guys you can throw against anyone, and I'm interested in the fight. He does certain things so well, and he's a very awkward fighter. I think his ability to grab that guillotine is wild. I mean, we just saw what Rob Font did to Thomas Almeida last week, and for Munoz to come in and kind of frustrate Font. If you watch that fight again, I do think Font was winning the fight up until the point that he got hurt and then submitted. But Munoz was honestly out. I thought the strikes that Munoz were landing while they were fewer and further between. I think that some of those shots, it seemed like every single one he threw, I think there was about like maybe 4 landed on Font's face, and that last one hurt him. And from there it was, guillotine city. So like I said, he does some certain things so well, other things he needs to improve on. But I just think John's more of a complete fighter. He's coming off a little, blip in the radar in his last fight. Tough loss, close fight. But I'm going to go with Dodson by decision. But I think Munoz can make it interesting at sometimes.
What about you, Tom?
Yeah, Munoz is very exciting. Rarely ever in a boring fight. And I think King said, grappling is just insane. But I just don't think he's on that upper tier level of fighter at bantamweight. He already has losses to Rivera, Asuncao, and to Rivera and Asun. I sounded like I was going to say a third name, but I didn't. I don't think he's on that level. I think John Dodson, is one of the elite fighters at 135. And I'm not going to hold that extremely close, controversial. He's had 2 very close, controversial decisions in his last 3 fights, and I think he's still got it. He's still got the speed. He's still got the insane striking to rely on, and I think if Munoz doesn't get that choke in, which is totally a possibility, I think Dodson easily takes the fight.
Yeah, Dodson, he has the quickness, he has the scramble skills, and he has decent wrestling to, if he does get taken down, he could get back up and keep the fight standing. And I see Dodson most likely knocking out Munoz in this fight. That's my prediction. Now, main event, Lyoto Machida versus Eric Anders, which is a weird fight, but actually it's not a weird fight because Machida has been getting his ass whooped and he's been out because of USADA. So it's like, is he the same fighter? And then you got a new guy, Anders, and he's the ex-football player. What is he, from Alabama or something, right? And do you same thing with Munoz? Do you think that Anders is going to come in main event in Brazil in enemy territory and take out Machida? What do you think is going to happen with that, King? Your mic's not on.
I think it's a weird matchup. Rough day for me today, but it is almost 2 a.m. here, so you got to cut me a little bit of slack. But I was going to say that, it is a weird matchup. I think Anders is a guy that obviously is very touted in this division, but there's not a lot of middleweight prospects in this division to begin with. So I think that's part of the reason he stands out, and the fact that he hasn't been doing this so long. So I do think he has potential. So I'm just going to preface everything I'm about to say with that. With that being said, outside of the Natal fight where he just absolutely mauled him, there hasn't been a fight that's necessarily stood out to me where I think that this guy is going to be the next UFC champion. I know, granted, he's young in his career. It's not like he's a guy that's been established for a while or whatever. He dominated Marcus Perez last fight, but I think that that's was a bad style matchup for Perez, and B, I don't think Perez is on maybe is as good as people hyped him up to be. I think his past competition wasn't spectacular, minus his fight against Ian Hines to get in the UFC. But that's neither here nor there. I think that Machida, on the other hand, falls under my category of completely unpredictable at this point. I don't know what he has left. If Anders isn't able to land on his chin, what kind of fight are we going to have? Is Anders going to take him down? I'm assuming that's probably what he's going to try to do. But he's never fought somebody on the level of Machida, even where Machida is now, in my opinion. With that being said, it would be hard for me to pick Machida at this point. So I'm going to go with Eric Anders. A little bit of unknowns here and there for me. I don't necessarily see where Machida could beat him right now. I don't think he's going to knock him out. And I don't think that, he could outpoint fight him. but I'm just going to go with Anders. I'm going to say that he gets it done by TKO in the 4th round after some ground and pound.
Moving on to Tone.
I'm like super conflicted on this one. Like a part of me thinks, Anders, the great athlete, played linebacker for Alabama State. Up and coming young guy should easily take this and take out the older Lyoto Machida. And then the other part of me is like, well, it's fucking Lyoto Machida, and he's got the experience in his corner, and he could, he should be able to outsmart somebody who's not been fighting for very long. And his style kind of lends towards beating someone like Anders as well. And then, but then it's like, I don't know. I really don't know where to go with this one. Machida obviously is not the same fighter he was years ago. Neither is Shogun. A lot of these guys just aren't where they used to be. If you put a gun to my head, I'd have to go with the younger, more athletic, up and coming guy. Get me on Fight Night, and I might have a completely different take on that. I might be picking Machida at that point.
And something that should be noted too, I think that I kind of forgot about when I was thinking, was that Anders actually went down and trained with Wonder Boy and Carl Reed from Contender Series quite a bit for this fight. So maybe to get a little bit of practice in with him might help as well. But I agree with everything else you said just now. Just thought I'd throw that in.
I don't think that training with Wonder Boy is gonna help Anders. It's not long enough. It's not. If he had been down there for like a couple months, then I think that could actually be helpful for him. But I don't think that's going to be helpful. I think that he might see some things, but it's not being in there with Machida. And I see this fight going down like the Brian Bader fight. Anders is gonna rush in, going for takedowns or something, right? And Machida's just gonna counter and knock him out. I feel that Machida is gonna win and retire. I think that's what's going to happen in this fight. I think this fight is kind of like a retirement fight. That's why they gave him Anders. It's somebody that's possible he can beat and then kind of go out, not on top, but go out on a win. And it's about time for Machida to hang it up, man. It's just the top level guys are just beating him too easily.
He's from Belem.
Yeah. And he's from that place. So it's like a bittersweet homecoming. And he could do the Karate Kid one last time, right?
I think it's perfect matchmaking by the UFC. I'm not sure that they think. I mean, either way for them, if Anders gets the win, it's kind of piggybacking off of a old-timey veteran at this point. So either way, UFC looks like geniuses with however way this goes. Excellent match. That's what you want. So props to Shelby on this one. That's a good call.
All right, man. It's time to go. We're going to shut this down. I'll see you guys next week after this UFC in Belem. Have a good weekend or have a good week, and we'll be back.